In 2014, BMW reset the naming process of their most popular M vehicle. The M3 would remain for sedan and the future wagon models, but the M4 would now be the nameplate on the coupe and convertible models. The launch was drawn out over several months, with a technical specification released to journalists in September 2013, followed by the full launch in January 2014 at the North American Auto Show in a snowy Detroit. I'll come on to engines later in the guide, but what you need to know for now is that this one is built only for the M4 and M3, coded S55B30 with 7,600 RPM as the red line. By the way, if you are watching this guide but looking for the M3 model, most of it will cross over, but it would be worth checking the 3 Series guide after this video for some additional information specific to that chassis. With this came a rethink of the M model itself. The facelift of the 4 Series would be applied to the M4, but in a different timeline. For the generations before, the front end of the M3 was not changed, but the M4 would adopt a new look in 2019. The chassis is coded F82 for the coupe and F83 for the convertible, and 50% of all parts on the M4 are unique to the model, so while it may look similar to the regular 4 Series, there are changes both visually and under the skin that make this an M car, so while a remap of the M440i will give similar power figures, the M4 not only has a wider power band, meaning more power more of the time, but the chassis dynamics will be hard to match without a complete overhaul, and the M4 has a wider track width from factory with 30mm width added to the front and 10mm added to the rear compared to the M440i model. The M4 has quite a wide variation of weights depending on the market. The lightest spec would be a manual car that in Europe was officially rated at 1,572 kilograms or 3,466 pounds in 2014. But you'll need to add 40 kilograms or 88 pounds if using the dual clutch gearbox, and the metal folding roof on the convertible adds 178 kilos or 392 pounds. I will add the options, markets and year will add variations to these numbers slightly, but this is a good base to work with. Now I'm going to jump in here with a couple of quick road test checks before we go into more details and the common faults and recalls, because checking the next 4 things could save you a lot of money. The first one is get into second or third gear on a drive and go gently on and off the throttle. If you find a small hill to do this on, that would be better, but you'll need to listen very carefully for a knocking noise from the rear. This is the rear diff mount and will need repairing before it causes a big issue. Number 2 is to drive at low speed over any dips in the road, preferably a drain cover or a pothole. Listen for a clunk or creak on the front end. If you hear it, then you've got a suspension mount or a component failed, and these are mostly M4 specific parts that carry a hefty price tag. Number three, get the car to temperature and then start turning at full lock and low speed. Any groaning at the rear is the differential, and repairs could be minor or major depending on the damage. Unfortunately, you won't know what's coming until a specialist gets the diff open. And 4, toggle the exhaust modes at idle with no throttle. Listen for a rattle in the exhaust. The flaps that can activate in different modes can fail. While you are stopped, get the AC at max and check the centre vents blow cold as well. The condensers are front mounted on the M4 and can get chips from the road or track debris. A new condenser isn't too expensive, but will be a few hours labour time at a specialist. While many of you may know that there is a regular M4, an M4 competition and an M4 CS, there are a total of 10 variations, with some limited and country-specific models. I'll go into more details on the engines later in the guide, but for now we'll cover the variations. I'll cover the more common ones first, as several of these are very limited number and the less popular unless you are a big M enthusiast or a collector. It starts with the base M4 sold from 2014 to 2019, although in some markets they dropped the model in 2019 as the final run-out models began production. From 2016, buyers could order the competition package, also known as ZCP in some markets, which boosted power, recalibrated the differential, and changed the chassis tuning. These are easy to spot thanks to unique star-spoked wheels, coded 666M. These are forged and quoted by BMW as M Light alloy. The competition is by far the most popular variation of the special editions, as its numbers were not limited. The M4 CS or Club Sport was sold between 2017 to 2019 and really targeted buyers that wanted a sharper version of the competition. If glancing through the cars, the CS gets matte grey wheels in a Y design coded 763M, and again are forged M-Lite alloys. Many of my old journalist colleagues felt the CS was the sweet spot of M4 production, but agreed that the competition offered better value for most people who weren't likely to use the car on track. After this, there are the limited run cars, the GTS being the one that most will have heard of. This was limited to 700 world units and gets a roll bar and club sport options as standard. The water-injected engine grabbed the headlines as it was the most powerful factory car, but unless you really want a track special or a collector, the compromises and price may make this something to admire at a car show rather than seriously want to own. A limited edition M4 DTM Champion Edition was released in 2014, just 23 units celebrating Marco Wittmann's title. On this model, there is no mechanical upgrades, but a full aero kit and interior detailing, along with an orange surround on the kidney grills. Another DTM Championship Edition is sold in 2016 to celebrate his second title. These are more common with 200 units, but obviously still very rare. They are fitted with the GTS package, including water injection, and typically go up for sale 4 times the price of regular M4s of the same year, as collectors look out for them. Note that both of the 2016 built cars I found were registered as 2017 cars. The Edition 30 Yara is the convertible model with unique colours and trim, with a base in competition specification. It celebrates 30 years of the convertible M3 and M4, and just 300 units were offered worldwide. 30 went to the UK and 30 to the USA. The M4 Edition, or M Heritage model depending on your market, was another landmark celebration car that is the highest number of special editions at 750 units. These are again based on the competition package, but get unique tricolour themed paint and interior. They are sold in 2019 and 2020 as the model is sunsetted and stand out from the rest while not demanding a huge premium over similar cars, making them a good choice for those wanting a late car that is different to the rest. After this, there are the limited and market-specific cars. In Japan, a Heat Edition was sold in 2018, just 15 M4 and 15 M3 models, all snapped up by collectors, and then a competition sport model was offered in Spain. This was limited to 60 units and carries the M4 competition package, but adds carbon ceramic brakes, a full aero kit, and adaptive dampers and 20-inch wheels, but misses the power boost and weight saving of the CS model to distinguish it as an ultimate competition model instead of a CS competitor. Moving on to safety, and the M4 was not specifically tested. However, the 3 Series that it shared most of its crash structure with was tested in Europe and scored 5 stars. IIHS also rated it as good, so it is reasonable to suggest that the M4 would also have attained a decent safety score if tested. Moving on to common faults, and a reminder to like or hype the video, as this will help it appear in front of people like yourself, considering whether an M4 is for them, and as always, a reminder to subscribe if you want more from the miles driven. You heard me mention 4 checks earlier for some common issues, so I won't repeat them, but make sure you've made a note of them if you are going to see a car soon. A first check on any M4 is the boot or trunk floor. Check the carpets for any water stains and check underneath for any water pooling, particularly on the left-hand side. Water ingress will cause the audio system to work intermittently or fail altogether. A specialist will know of BMW's bulletin to negate the chance of this happening with a splash shield and resealing the leak path. If a car has already had this done, take it as a positive buying sign. Any signs of hard shifting on a DCT gearbox, especially when cold, should not be ignored or passed off as a characteristic of the car. It is an early sign of a mechatronic leak. If you sort it early, you can save a lot of money. BMW have an official leak diagnosis test for this to avoid firing the parts cannon. Inspecting the breather and seals usually finds a culprit. Leave this without a check and you'll burn the clutches and then the solenoids, then hear the unmistakable sound of your bank balance imploding as the whole unit blows, and the cost of a tow is the least of your worries. You heard me mention the rear differential knock check earlier. Along with the suspension check, it's also worth adding a figure 8 in a car park and then reversing into a space. Any groaning or noise a bit like a steam train leaving the station, and you'll need a gearbox and differential fluid change immediately. Hopefully this will fix the problem. If not, the damage will either be the clutch, the differential, or both. Brake squeaking on low pressure will likely be due to glazing of the pads or discs if the car has mainly been used in slow environments like city traffic. Changing the pads may resolve the issue, but expect a light squeak if you are in slow traffic on a cold morning. The brakes are designed for higher temperatures for consistent brake feel, so don't like cold weather and light braking. This isn't a fault if it's just a minor noise that you only get in traffic. Some owners found aftermarket pads were better, but opinions were mixed. All M4 coupe models get a carbon roof unless fitted with a sunroof. These should be checked, especially on the edges and around the antenna, for milking, yellowing or peeling. A top way to avoid this is to either get a decent wax on the clear coat to protect it. Some owners use paint protection film or ceramic coating. If it is clear coat wrapped, ask how long it has been on there. This may seem trivial, but if you remove protection film after 5 years, the chances of lifting some of the clear coat rise. If not wrapped and you see clear coat damage, don't let a seller tell you it's a cheap repair. It is not. At least it isn't if you want it done right. We've all seen paint peel before, and in most cases it isn't too expensive to fix. However, once you call the paint shop and mention it's a carbon roof, you'll understand why this is in the common faults list. It is a tough and very expensive job to get right on a carbon fibre roof. BMW may honour a warranty claim if it's within the paint warranty period. Push for this if you have it. If you've recently bought a car and found the battery dead after a few days, you won't be alone. The batteries are expensive on these, and some less than honest sellers won't mention that the battery keeps dying. A parasitic drawer test will hopefully find the issue, but if linked to the comfort access, then the door handles will likely need replacing, and a new battery alone is costly. It will also need reprogramming to the car. Unfortunately, it is tough to test for this when looking, but if the car has had multiple battery replacements in its history, it may have had a parasitic drawer for some time that previous owners haven't sorted. Now, before you become terrified that these are all money pits, as ever, a reminder that a common fault is between 0.5 and 1% of production, and facing all of these issues would either mean you bought a car with your eyes closed or have been unlucky in the extreme. Most owners have a small issue here or there, but if addressed early, the M4 isn't worse for issues than many of its competitors. Next up are the recalls, and a reminder that some will be country specific, and the best way is always to check your VIN in your market, but the general list to know is coming up, along with a reminder to buy the Miles Driven book or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships if you're loving the channel. In 2015, there was a single recall for the driveshaft slip joint leaving the factory without being lubricated. This affected a small batch of cars built in 2015. In 2016, there were 2 recalls, the first to replace rear subframe bolts, as it was identified that differential service work at dealers had reused the one-time use bolt. All cars known to have had this service were recalled. The second was for seatbelt mounting airbags, as the inflators on some cars were out of tolerance from factory. In 2017, there was a single recall for seatbelts on convertible models due to locking retractors having an incompatible housing on a batch of cars. In 2018, there was a single recall for a driveshaft flange as it was at risk of separating. This appears across countries from America and Australia to the UK and Canada. In 2019, the knee airbags were recalled on a batch of cars due to an incorrect fold. In 2020, there was a single recall for cars that had been built without the correct dampers on the fuel injectors. This was limited to a small batch of cars and is not across all countries. A late recall came in 2024 when the inflators on the curtain airbags were noted for irregular welds that could rupture the inflator. The airbag was replaced on non-Takata fitted models. Dealers sent notices to owners. Moving on to the engines, and as earlier mentioned, all M4s get the S55 B30, but there are several states of tune, and this changes the coding slightly. For clarity, the base M4 gets 425 brake horsepower, the competition pushes this to 450 brake horsepower, the CS ups this to 460 brake horsepower, and the GTS gets 500 brake horsepower. Checking the BMW service and technician manuals, the coding changes don't appear to be the same across the world, so I won't mention the end coding, but a spec check will list power upgrades either as Comp, ZCP, CS or GTS, so should be easy to distinguish. Official fuel economy varies between years and markets, but in Europe the late M4 models were quoted by BMW at 28.2 miles per gallon or 10.02 litres per 100 kilometres. Now, while performance will be critical to most buyers, the variation of lap times around the Nordschleife shows just how much more there is than the power upgrades across models. The standard M4 ran a 7 minute and 52 seconds around the Green Hell back in 2014. The ultimate version, the GTS, smashed that time with a 7 minute 28-second run in 2016, which even the later CS model couldn't beat, the CS recording a 7 minute and 38-second time, showing just how far BMW went with the GTS and its water-injected engine. Away from power though, the big question is reliability. The three big things to check are the crank hub, which many owners will have done a preventative maintenance modification to, with a crank bolt capture or pinned hub. This is advised to all owners, as while how necessary this is a hot topic in BMW owners' clubs. For the cost and the ability to negate the possible risk and massive cost that could go with a spun crank hub, it seems a sensible thing to get done. Fuel systems have their reports for either a fuel rail pressure low, usually giving a misfire, or the injectors leaking. Some of these reports are linked to the late recall that I mentioned earlier. Then there is the charger to air cooler, which can have an internal leak. If this cracks, it will allow coolant into the intake system, and you will have a very sad face as the garage owner quickly realises what has happened and how much damage it has caused. You could get a borescope into the cooler to check it, but many owners just look to replace it with an upgraded unit to remove the risk of failure. If you find one that has a full history, the crank hub and the air cooler replaced and uprated, you are likely looking at a car that has been enthusiast-owned and cared for. On to our picks, and on the M2 buyer's guide, a few people were unhappy when I said that on a low budget, I would pick the standard car because it was enough, and on the top budget, I would pick the CS, as the CS model is seen by many journalists, including myself, as one of the best cars in its category, which was my point on that car. But on the M4, I don't share this view. The M4 competition would be my pick for most buyers, with the late heritage models the higher budget pick. It will only be for those wanting the ultimate M4 and willing to pay for it that will be looking at the CS or then the GTS, as these do compromise an otherwise great fast road car towards either only a weekend car or a track car. If that's you, the CS is a very strong contender, and as it isn't as highly strung as the GTS, it will require a bit less maintenance, while the GTS is the one that dominates if the ultimate driving machine is your only desire. As ever, if the M4 isn't for you, we have plenty of other guides, including the Porsche Cayman, the Nissan GT-R, and the Mercedes AMG GT and Audi R8 to check out next.